Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're diving into a topic that's been making waves in the creative community, Adobe's recent privacy updates. Now, if you're a photographer, designer, or just someone who uses Adobe products, this is something you absolutely need to know about. Adobe has introduced new privacy terms that essentially give them access to all your photos, and this has sparked a serious debate about privacy, data rights, and what it means to be a content creator in the digital age. Now, I want to preface this by saying I've been an avid Adobe user for over a decade, but this really goes over the line of what is acceptable when it comes to your rights to privacy. So let's start by breaking down exactly what Adobe has done. In their latest privacy update, Adobe has outlined that they have the right to access, analyze, and use the photos you upload to their services. This includes anything stored in Adobe Creative Cloud, whether it's your personal photography, client work, or even drafts of projects you're still working on. Now, Adobe justifies this by saying they need access to your content to improve their products and services, particularly in terms of AI-driven features. They claim that by analyzing your photos, they can enhance their machine learning algorithms, which will ultimately make their tools better for everyone. But here's the kicker. This update isn't optional. By continuing to use Adobe services, you're automatically agreeing to these new terms. There's no opt-out feature, and that's a major red flag for a lot of people. In fact, it should be a major red flag for everyone. Now, why is this such a big deal? On the surface, Adobe's reasoning might sound harmless. After all, who doesn't want better tools? But when you dig deeper, there are some serious privacy concerns here. First and foremost, your photos are your intellectual property. They represent your creativity, your work, and sometimes even your livelihood. By allowing Adobe to access your photos, you are essentially handing over a significant part of your creative process to a corporation. And while Adobe claims they'll only use your data to improve their services, the fact that they can access it at all without your explicit consent is troubling. Now, this leads to a broader and more alarming issue, the potential for unauthorized parties to gain access to your sensitive information and content. Now, once Adobe has the ability to access and analyze your photos, it creates a new entry point for data to be exposed. We've seen countless data breaches over the years from even the most secure companies. Adobe themselves have had a major data breach in the past, exposing millions of users' accounts. Now, this history alone should make us question the safety of our content under their control. Now, imagine this. Your content, whether it's personal family photos, intimate client work, or high-stakes commercial projects, this is going to be all stored in Adobe's cloud. And now, if a breach were to occur, unauthorized parties could potentially access everything from harmless vacation snaps to highly sensitive corporate content. The implications are terrifying. For instance, photos of your children, which should remain private, could end up in the wrong hands. Family moments that were meant to be cherished within your circle could be exposed to strangers, or worse, exploited for malicious purposes. For professionals, the stakes are even higher. Many of us work with clients who require strict confidentiality, especially in fields like advertising, corporate, communications, or fashion. In these cases, we often sign NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements that legally bind us to keep the content private. A breach of these agreements due to unauthorized access by third parties or even by Adobe itself could lead to legal ramifications. It's not just your reputation on the line, but potentially significant financial penalties and loss of trust in your professional relationships. Consider a scenario where you're working on a high-profile ad campaign for a new product launch. The client has entrusted you with images and materials that are not to be seen by anyone outside of the project until the official release. If those images were accessed by an unauthorized party, either through a data breach or misuse of Adobe's access rights, the entire campaign could be compromised. Now, competitors might gain an unfair advantage, and your client could suffer substantial losses, both financially and in terms of market reputation. Now, moreover, the nature of creative work often involves sensitive content, whether it's editorial photography that challenges societal norms or documentary work that exposes controversial issues. The risk of unauthorized access can lead to serious consequences. Imagine working on a photo series that addresses sensitive political or social topics and having that content leaked or accessed by those who oppose the message. The safety of your subjects and the integrity of your work could be at stake. This isn't just about hypotheticals, it's about protecting the very core of what we do as creatives. When we lose control over who can see our works, we lose control over our creative freedom. And in a world where data is increasingly commodified, the risk of unauthorized access to our most personal and sensitive content is too great to ignore. Now, in summary, Adobe's new policy opens the door to a range of privacy concerns that extend far beyond the company's stated intentions. By allowing Adobe to access our photos, we're not just trusting them to use our data responsibly, we're also exposing ourselves to the risk of that data being accessed manually by Adobe when they please or by unauthorized parties. And in today's digital landscape, that's a risk we simply can't afford to take. But beyond the general privacy concerns, there's an even more unsettling aspect to this update. Now imagine if you store personal family photos in Adobe Creative Cloud, pictures of your children, your spouse, or intimate moments with loved ones. Under these new terms, Adobe agents could potentially have the ability to manually view these photos. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario, it's a very real possibility. Now, the thought that someone you've never met could be looking at photos of your kids or other private family moments is incredibly disturbing. Now, let's take this a step further. Let's say if you're a professional in the industry, perhaps specializing in intimate photography, such as boudoir, this update is even more concerning. Many of you have made commitments to your clients that their photos will remain private, seen only by you and edited only by you. This is especially critical given the sensitive nature of such content. Yet, under Adobe's new policy, there's a risk that someone within Adobe could access and view these highly personal images. This violates the trust you've built with your clients and could have devastating consequences for your reputation and your relationship with your models. Now, another significant concern arises for those of us who work with commercial or corporate clients. Often, these projects involve signing NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements, that strictly prohibit the reproduction or sharing of any content from the shoot. Now, these contracts are legally binding and are designed to protect the confidentiality of the client's project, ensuring that their content remains private and secure. However, with Adobe's new privacy policy compliance, with these NDAs become problematic. If Adobe has the ability to access and analyze your photos, it raises serious questions about whether you're truly able to uphold the terms of these agreements. How can you guarantee your client that their content won't be viewed or used by anyone else if Adobe reserves the right to do so? Now, this could potentially put you at risk of breaching your contract, damaging client relationships, and even facing legal repercussions. This issue is particularly pressing in industries where confidentiality is paramount, such as advertising, product development, and high-profile corporate work. The trust between you and your client is built on that assurance that their sensitive content is handled with the utmost care and discretion, and Adobe's policy undermines that trust. For creatives, this update has far-reaching implications. Many of us rely on Adobe's suite of products to do our work, whether it's Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere Pro, or any of their other tools. Adobe is the industry standard, and for a lot of us, switching to another platform isn't a really viable option. But with this new policy, it feels like Adobe is taking advantage of that reliance. They're essentially saying, if you want to use our tools, you have to give up a portion of your privacy, and that sets a dangerous precedent. This also raises ethical concerns about how companies like Adobe are treating their users. Should a corporation have the right to access your creative work without your explicit consent? And if they do, what does that mean for the future of digital creation? As more companies adopt similar policies, will we see a world where privacy is a luxury only available to those who can afford to avoid these platforms? So what can you do if you're concerned about Adobe's privacy update? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of options. One solution is to minimize the amount of content you store on Adobe's cloud services. If you can, consider using local storage or alternative cloud providers that offer better privacy protections. Another option is to explore alternative software. While Adobe is the industry leader, there are other tools out there that offer similar functionality without the same invasive privacy policies. Programs like Affinity Photo, DaVinci Resolve, and Capture One are gaining popularity as viable alternatives to Adobe's offerings. You can also make your voice heard by reaching out to Adobe directly. If enough users express their concerns, there's a chance that Adobe might rethink these policies. Social media petitions are really good, and direct feedback can all play a role in pushing for change. Now, beyond just Adobe, this situation highlights a growing need for better privacy protections across the industry. As more companies move towards AI-driven services, the demand for user data is only going to increase. We as consumers and creators need to advocate for better privacy standards and push back against policies that infringe on our rights. This is especially important in the creative community, where our work is often deeply personal and valuable. We need to ensure that our creative process remains in our control and that we're not forced to trade our privacy for the tools we need to succeed. Adobe's recent privacy update is more than just a footnote in their terms of service. It's a serious issue that affects all of us who use their products. By allowing Adobe to access our photos, we're giving up a significant part of our creative autonomy, and that's something we should all be concerned about. If this issue resonates with you, I definitely encourage you to take action. Whether it's switching to an alternative software, minimizing your use of Adobe's cloud services, or simply spreading the word about this issue. Every little bit helps, pretty much what I'm doing. Together, we can push for a future where creativity and privacy can coexist. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, share it as well, and let's keep this conversation going in the comments. What are your thoughts on Adobe's privacy update? Have you guys found any good alternatives? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one. Stay safe and be well.